See, after hearing some of the words which have been there for last session, say when we have to write a paper, we should have endurance. That is the first thing which we should be having. We should have flexibility and we should have strength. I think that strength which is being needed, Dr. Anupama, so the way in which she had vibrated whole of the session, I think she would be the best person to moderate this session. And I know they are all academic persons and they are really so the people who have experience in writing the paper, which is the most difficult thing. So I sort of request.
So, good afternoon and congratulations to Dr. Akash and team. And the session today is about the scientific writing. So, from physical and mental health to now professional health. Because all of us see a lot of patients. In our country, the clinical material is unlimited. So, documentation is more important, and after the documentation, it comes to the publicizing. So, it is an art actually, and for that and science both. So for that we have esteemed panelist, and we have moderator Dr. Anupama Ramkumar. She is already a postgraduate alumni from Government Medical College Baroda, and she is a physician, but she is for more than 2 decades working in the field of publicizing and how to publish the research. So she will be the best person to continue the further discourse of this session.
Thanks, Bhagirath. Can I have that, please? Yeah. So thank you, Bhagirath, and hello and welcome everyone. My name is Dr. Anupama Ramkumar, and I am an MD in medicine from Baroda Medical College, and it is such a privilege for me. I can't tell you that the chair of the session is Dr. J.D. Rekhani, who was my guide, so I cannot tell you what this means to me. Thank you so much. So the topic of today is how to publish your research, and I remember one of Sir's advice, the Guru Gyan, when we were on our rounds, and I was in R1, and a very tired R1 at that, because I was a very sincere R1. So I was standing by the door while he was while he was taking rounds, and he called me and he said, you should also stand and listen. मेरे को तो कुछ समझ नहीं पड़ती थी. You know, all these R3s, and we had some very Khantu R3s. Sir, you'll remember Gorang Buch. And, and then I had a very Khantu R1 also, I should say. So Sir said one thing. He said, what you're going to listen on these rounds, you will not find on the books. My job as a teacher is to give you my experience, which only I know. And I don't want you to make the same mistakes as you do. So that lesson has stayed long enough for me today I remember it again as I'm standing in front of Sir. And that's exactly what we were discussing with the panelists. I said, when we are having this session, will they asking me PowerPoint, give us the questions? I said, no, we are going to go extempore. Because it's very easy to Google today how to get your research published. You find out, there'll be WikiHow, there will be articles which are already published on how to publish research, and you don't need to be sitting here to learn that. You could just Google it. But my panel has extensive experience in writing their own research. They are all academicians. They have, publications in 90, 60 books, you name it. And so every paper teaches you something. And that teaching remains with you. It doesn't come on Google. And when my work is in clinical research and then medical writing, I see that we get a lot of data and requests from doctors, and I see that it is such badly presented data, such badly written hypothesis on the question that is asked, but with a big dream कि इसे international journal में छाप दूँ. And that doesn't happen until you've gone through the rigor of having written several of your own, facing the rejection that comes. Most of them will get rejected, celebrating the wins of having it published, and each of those experiences is what I wanted my panelists to share with all of us over here on how to write research, things that you will not be able to Google. I am very delighted to have my panel here. Welcome to all of you. I have their CVs here, but I would not spend time in discussing that. At the least, they are all academicians, and at the most, they are heads of departments of their own colleges. We have Dr. Kalpita from BMC itself, Dr. Aarti, who's an alumni of our college, and she tells me that Dr. Lakhani was her guide as well. So she is the HOD at Internal Medicine at Parul University. We have Dr. Devendra, Dr. Saurabh from Delhi and Patna, again as leaders in their department. All of Dr. Kalpita and Aarti have undergone some training in medical writing, and Dr. Saurabh, and how he says that he picked up on the job. So what we would discuss today is the experiences and the thought that they have as we publish research. So I have a set of questions with them. I would want the audience also to participate. But before we start the panel and the discussions on how to write your research, how many in the audience have published their own research? All right, so we do have a few, and for several it could be first. And I'm sure the topic must interest you, and that is, why you are here. All right. So, any thoughts on people who have published, on what is the most difficult part of the writing? What is the most difficult part of writing? What is the most difficult part of writing your research? All right, so one is an administrative part, taking ethical committee approvals, and the second is a skill, the statistical analysis. Why do you think statistical analysis is difficult? I'll ask my panel to answer. Can we have some mics here, please? Yeah. Dr. Saurabh, yes. We can hear you.
Ma'am, I am Dr. Saurabh Srivastava. I am working as professor and head in the Department of Medicine at Government Institute of Medical Sciences, Greater Noida. In my opinion, the best thing before we write paper is the idea.
No, question. You have to answer his question. But do you... The question is EC competent? No, sir, what is your question? आप
What is
question
your question,
बताइए,
sir?
answer, don't worry. For publication.
Yes, it is compulsory.
Is EC permission necessary for all publication?
Ethical permission is necessary for going for a trial. If you are doing a trial, then it is necessary.
Question
Yes,
is
sir.
publication.
So, if we are going for publication, the journal will definitely ask for ethical clearance.
Sir, the answer only has to be yes or no.
Yes, yes.
Dr. Kalpita.
It depends on the journal you are choosing again. If it's a local journal, they will accept. But if it's an international, if it's a PubMed journal, they will. You should ideally, ethically, you should have a ethical permission.
The answer can only be yes,
Yes.
or no. Not
So-
opinions. Yes, ma'am.
More, so it is yes if you want to get into a good decent job. Yes.
Exactly. So, like sir said,
Exactly.
it would
No,
depend
he is
upon the
asking
type
about
of
trial.
publication. Yes.
Other than reviews, if it is a
उन्होंने publication
no,
बोला.
if it is a study, people also ask ethical permission. Some journals are even asking
Sir,
for a
एक
case
minute.
report.
We'll come back to you. Madam is speaking.
Yes. So some So other than review article, if it is something from case report to original article, any kind of study, you need an ethical committee.
If so, the answer actually is that if you are publishing data of a human, you need to take ethical permission. So whether it is an interventional style or an observational study or even a retrospective review of your case charts, you need ethical permissions. But if it, like ma'am said, it's a review article, it is a meta-analysis, you will not need. It doesn't depend upon the time of journal. So that is why we are discussing it. Ethics committee permission can be taken
They
from
have to- they
anywhere.
have to
It is
make
not
a ethical
necessary
committee.
medical college. There are 1200 ethics committees in India. There are 1200 ethics committees. So the question then becomes is do you need an ethics committee approval from Calcutta only? Can Dr. Arti's सर हम आज की बात करेंगे हमारे पास एक ही घंटा है सॉरी वी आर नॉट हियरिंग स्टोरीज all right, so as we start, please feel free to interject and have questions. We have a flow of the session, and that's why I'm using my phone, because the flow is here. And I will go to my panelists to ask those and to deliberate on that. After each of these questions, you will have an opportunity to ask a question to that panelist itself before we move on to the next section, right? So we will not keep questions all for the end. Right. So the first opening batsman is Dr. Aarti, and the question to you is, when do you actually, so we are going to talk about publishing your research. So the assumption is it's not a meta-analysis, it is not a review article, it's not a case report. What we are talking about discussing today is publishing your research, a trial that you have done, observational study, retrospective, interventional, whatever it may be. You're publishing that, and you have done the study. The question to her is, when do you actually start to write your research, and what are the essential things to keep in mind before you start? And after you started, what is it that you write first? You could come here, Dr. Aarti.
So it's very difficult to match her vibrancy. When you start writing, you have to actually match. She has made it so interesting, the session. So I have to keep balance to it to the end, so that no one of you, stands up and goes.
सही बात है.
So यही चीज़ हमें हमारे जब हम पेपर लिखते हैं, we have to maintain it. That you have to maintain it in a flow, so that people don't get bored in between and they don't understand what you are writing, and they just leave it in between. So that is one thing. Now coming to the question, it can be taken in two ways. When do you start writing as in your career?
No, writing your
And-
research.
No, I'll answer
Okay, you're
that
going
also,
back.
but-
Okay, sorry.
And when do you actually start writing? The first question becomes important because we are all at different stages. As I told you, I started writing because Lakhani sir was my HOD and he compelled me to write. He first came कि अभी यहाँ पे conference है and you should write. So that is the first thing. Before that, I was not exposed to any research other than the thesis that I had done. I was not really interested in publication. It is him who told me, go write about this article and go present it in the conference. So I was only compelled because I was told by my HOD to do something and present. And coincidentally, it came out right because he guided, and it won the Best Oral Paper Award. My first research paper presented won the first Best Oral Paper Award in a state conference. I owe it all to him. But then that started my journey. So, when do you start writing? It may be a PG student who has been told by a guide to write, or it may be a consultant who has been told by his HOD to write, or it may be some consultant. It is made mandatory by the regulatory body to write, that is why you are writing. But the most important thing is when you have a passion to write. So we come to the question proper. First thing that is important is your passion. Why are you writing? You are writing because you have found something curious on your rounds, something curious in your patient, something curious you want to find out some answer which you don't know from the literature that is available. So that is the first thing, and that is the first thing which makes your topic. So the first thing to write before you start writing, the preparation is one is the topic. So the topic comes from the
Dr. Aunty,
curiosity
sorry
with
to
that.
interrupt,
Yeah.
but here we are saying that you've already done your research. The study is, you have a study, and what you're publishing is an original data. So when you have that and you know that I'm going to do a study or I've done a study, when do you start writing the paper? The question is specific. When do you start writing the paper? You have a study. So it's not a review article, it's not a topic, it is your study, your data that is there. Like for example, Dr. Akash said in the previous session that they're going to do a study on soleus push-ups. When will they start? When would you advise them to start writing the paper?
So basically you have to be prepared with everything. You have a data. You have to know before prepare. You have to prepare which journal you are aiming for. What all the requirements of the journal are. I'm actually combining both the questions.
But
that
our
you
topic is
posted.
specific.
Okay.
And then all right. So what do you write first in a research paper?
So
What is the first thing that you will write? Please be
it
specific in your
again
research.
depends on.
What would you write, Dr.
I
Aunty?
would write introduction first.
All right.
Okay. Some people go with writing methodology first. Some people say that they write methodology first. They can take a call on their own, but I write introduction first, not the proper, perfect introduction, but a layout of introduction, because then I know what exactly I want from my methodology. That is why I would write the introduction first. The part that you want is what is the purpose of your study and what do you want to get out of this study. So that makes the last portion of the introduction, and that gives me the outline of what I want from my study. And then I start writing the methodology.
Great. So
introduction
if
and
you
methodology first.
perfect. So and we'll put that question to the audience. When you're writing, so when you start writing your introduction and methodology, what are the essential things to keep in mind as you start to write your paper?
So methodology, when you are writing, you have to think that whoever is reading it or whoever is doing it is a layperson. You have to write each and every step of the method in a chronological order. Whenever a patient is coming, how are you going to include that patient? What will be the criteria? It has to include every minute detail of the study that you are going to do. So, inclusion criteria, when you are including, why would you exclude a patient? If you are doing a study, you are diagnosing, what will be your diagnostic criteria? When you have diagnosed the patient, what are the investigations that you will subject the patient to? And so it should contain all the minute details. If you are doing a diagnosis, you are doing some investigation, which test you are going to subject into, which parameter, which machine is going to be used, what will be the normal thing
Where are
for
these things
every
usually
patient.
there? Where would you pick this from?
From the literature.
From the literature. Okay. So your study is already done, I assume, or the study is being done. So you would have already done all of this, the methodology. So where is the methodology coming
No,
from?
I'm not talking about we are doing the study itself now.
Yeah, so आपकी study आप publish करने वाले हो
स्टडी
ना?
बिना मेथोडोलॉजी के नहीं होगी.
Correct. तो वो
Yes.
methodology कहाँ लिखी हुई है जो आप लिख रहे
That
हैं?
we are writing.
वो तो आप पेपर में लिख रहे हो. जब आप स्टडी कर रहे हो, आपकी स्टडी हो चुकी है, ये मेथोडोलॉजी आप कर चुके हो, आप ये लिख रहे हो कि हमने अपनी स्टडी में वी डिड दिस. Where is that methodology coming from? Your resident is doing it. Does he come to you that, madam, please tell me what is the methodology, or where is that
But
methodology?
methodology is already written, no?
Where, madam? Where is it written? Where is it written?
It is written in the protocol. It's in the
It
protocol.
is in the protocol. So you cannot write a research, you cannot do a research if you don't have a protocol. While this is a very simple thing, it does not happen. Most of the time the methodology is कि जो किया था लिख दो, because there is no protocol. Your methodology is basically the copy of what is written in the protocol. There are no brain cells there. What you wrote in your protocol will come in your methodology. From medical colleges, from academic institutes, from investigator-initiated studies, unless it is by pharma, we don't see a protocol. Very often when we get this data, हमें बाद में एक प्रोटोकॉल भी लिखनी पड़ती है, बिकॉज एथिक्स कमेटी के अप्रूवल के लिए एक प्रोटोकॉल चाहिए. बट देर इज़ नो स्टडी विदाउट अ प्रोटोकॉल. एंड यस मैम, दैट इज़ अ प्रोटोकॉल. A protocol is any plan which has a methodology. Say that the plan is what are you getting ethical approval for? आप ethical approval के लिए क्या भेज रहे हो? हाँ. आप मैडम EC को क्या भेजते हो? तो बोलो ना प्रोटोकॉल. आपको मालूम है, आप HOD हो, आपके रेजिडेंट को नहीं मालूम. ही कांट रीड डॉक्टर आरती's माइंड. वही मैं पूछ रही थी. Where is your protocol? We don't see a protocol. आप बोल रहे हो पहली चीज़ है. So many times we publish when we are ready to write the paper is we write the protocol क्योंकि ethics committee का approval चाहिए, because पूरी data आ चुका होता है. So these are, what she's saying is absolutely right. What we are talking about, the experience that we see, and it makes research so easy if you have a protocol. In right now in many medical colleges, and I'm sure my panel would agree, that it is essential to publish. To get promotion you have to publish, isn't it? But most of the time that's why we are getting those requests. Good, that's very good. Yes, so what happens is that because that research has to be published, the data does come in. So if you look at statistics, India is now number 3 country in the world which publishes the maximum number of papers in the world because of some of these rules. But if you look at the flip side, the citation of these papers is one of the least in the world, because it's largely 99.9% of those papers are done because it is mandatory.
So actually that is why passion is important. Once you are writing out of your curiosity, you are writing your own question, answer to your own question.
Absolutely.
You won't have that. Compulsion doesn't make it a research paper, actually.
100%. You make it mandatory, it's not, everybody finds a loophole. All right, Dr. Aarti, I'll come back to you. So what you said is, you need passion before you start, and what you would write first is the introduction and the methodology. We didn't particularly pick when would you start to write the particular paper, but we'll come back to it. So Dr. Kalpita, to you, the paper that Dr. Aarti has started to write, the introduction and the methodology of, what is the anatomy of the paper? What are the parts of the paper? Could you elaborate?
I shall begin by starting one question. Like most of us have published certain papers, right? So how do we write it? How do you start? As madam said, like most of the time we have some data given and then we start with making the objective and then writing. But then if I want to look at the skeleton of the paper, how do we start? Do we write the abstract first? The, so that is what we do in the protocol. But when we are doing it for the research paper, what should we start? Okay. Discussion, yes. For us, like for the clinical part especially, the discussion will be more important. And we usually follow the symbolic of IMRAT. So I is introduction, then comes the method. The method is the heart of any study because we want someone to replicate it, it should be possible. The third one is the results, and the last, the D, stands for discussion. But discussion and conclusion can go hand in hand. Again, when I have these things, I have something known as bits and pieces. What do you think are these bits and pieces for a article, for a research paper? Do we decide the authors? Where do we write? Do we have a title? Fine. So title is basically my salability. If I write, what is the prevalence of diabetes in a OPD, in a private sector, in so and so city, it's a very drab topic. But if I say high prevalence of diabetes in a South Indian city, so that is a catchy thing. So that is the main thing. But when I start this IMRAT followed by something is the abstract. So when you read your articles, when you read the journal, what do you focus on? Do we read the discussion? Do we read the introduction? Yes. So usually, like even if we are reviewing an article, we think, okay, let me see what is the objective. So I'll start with the end of the introduction and then I'll go to the results, or maybe just look at the figures and tables. Interesting lag raha hai, samajh mein aa raha hai. Okay, let me start with reading the entire article, or maybe just the abstract, or maybe the title. So abstract comes after the IMRAT. Like basically you form the IMRAT, that is the introduction, methods, the results, discussion, conclusion. Then make the abstract, which is the gist of the entire article. Everyone of us has some research. So that is the thing. We have certain criteria for authors. So there are so many people who are going to help you within the thing, but they are not authors. We don't want to give them any post authorship. So acknowledgement and funding. So all these things will come in the bits and pieces. Another thing, मुझे article देना है journal में. So I have to write the letter. I have to write something to the editors that I'm submitting this. So that thing should be ready, the cover letter and the title page. So title page will include my title and the authors, author affiliations. Anything else? जिसने articles लिखे हैं, what is the most difficult part of writing an article? Article बन गया है, but उसके बाद क्या होता है? Data analysis. Yes. Okay, so that comes in our results. So introduction will be funnel shaped. I'm trying to find out my problem statement. Go down, look at कितने studies ऐसी हुई है और मेरी study क्या नया आपको दे रही है. And then you end with the objectives. That is your introduction. Your methods have to be replicable. So your study setting, your sample size. Basically हम लोग काफ़ी बार ये करते हैं कि 3 महीने में जितने patient आए मैंने लिख दिए. But then to improve the validity of my study, I should have an ideal sample size. Data analysis क्या करने वाले हैं, कैसे करने वाले, that has to be added. And the ethical statement. So again, nowadays if you are looking at good journals, ethical statements is also one of the criteria to be mentioned. Anything else? Data analysis. Then the results. Results may we say don't replicate your results with the tables and figures. So
That's,
it should be,
we'll leave it to another panelist for that.
okay. So that is about the
There's one
skeleton.
another thing that she's been asking. Anything else? Anything else that's left in the paper?
No, I
References.
asked-
Absolutely. The bibliography.
So, taking care of not plagiarizing or plagiarizing, writing copy paste. And one more thing. I asked one question, what is the second most difficult maybe after you write an article? Word count? Word count. So if you look at the articles, they say 2500 words, 3000 words, but then मैंने तो 7000 लिख दिए and खुद से काटना मुश्किल है. So give it to some other peer reviewer or someone else who will help that and make the statement lucid and short. So that is about the skeleton of a manuscript.
That was an excellent anatomical discussion on this. So we have Imrad, which is the base, the big part of the manuscript, which is your most words would go, the abstract, which is 250 words usually, the title, and she captured everything very well. So thank you, Dr. Kalpita. You mentioned about the title and, the keywords. So my question to Dr. Saurabh now. And I remember this, I did a course of journalism with Times of India just, I think, during my internship. And from that, I remember one thing that was as a take home for that whole year was my editor telling me that the people will only read if your title and your first 2 lines are interesting. Because there's just so much to do. Your research, whatever you write would not, and a news report is like a research, will not get read. So pay attention to your title and pay attention to the first 2, which Dr. Aarti also said very well, that, it's the introduction that matters and, how you're presenting your research. So we know, taking on from both of them, that the title does become, because with just so much of articles and things that you are faced every day, how do you make sure, or what is it that you would like to keep in mind on the title? And we also see that journals have keywords. Especially when you're submitting. You don't see it on the journal when it's published, but there are some keywords that are giving. So I'd like Dr. Saurabh to tell us about, what are you going to keep in mind when you are deciding on the title, and what is the relevance of keywords?
The thing is that if I say that you want to go ahead for a research paper, what you will do, how will you search the literature? Anything else? आपके पास 5 आर्टिकल आ गए हैं. How will you decide that I have to read this article, I have to read this or not? Title. सबसे पहले तो टाइटल आएगा ना. तो फर्स्ट थिंग इज टाइटल. तो टाइटल शुड बी इंफॉर्मेटिव, it should be concise, and it should be relevant. It should reflect whatever is being done in your study. अगर ये 3 चीज़ें आपकी होंगी, then आप उस that title will become informative, and that title will give an idea to the editors also, to the reviewers also, and to the person who is reading, that whether they should be accepted, they should be taken into peer review process, they should be read for my future research, whether it should be cited or not, whether I should get information about this or not. So title is the most important thing of an research, because it gives you first impression that how we are going about it. Am I clear?
Absolutely, Dr. Saurabh. That was really very informative and crisp, like quite a title should be. That a title should be clear, concise, and very catchy. And keywords, especially today, where a lot of where
I
there
am
are.
coming to keywords.
Oh, all right. Yeah. Sorry.
So what are keywords? Keywords are, you must have seen PubMed mein it is MESH, that is medical subject headings. ठीक है ना? So keywords are the words by which your article is placed in a repository or a database. So these are the words which actually make your article retrievable, and it becomes open to all. And how it can be searched, how it can become more, becomes available to whole of the community, medical community in which you are putting up the paper. So these are the important thing, that repository will search with those keywords only. And it has been said that it should not be a single word, because it may misguide. So it can be a collection of 1 or 2 words, that is the phrase type of thing. And preferably your title should contain, the first 65 letters of your title must contain your keywords, so that your article becomes searchable.
Absolutely. You have any one of you is a peer reviewer for a journal? I know my panelists are. So when you get that information, that mail that asks you to peer review, what comes? on which you say I'll accept or decline. Dr. Devendu, what is your first impression when you get that mail? What comes in just the mail? But what has come in the mail? That mail comes to you, that dear peer reviewer.
Mostly they send a title.
It is the title. So the title will decide, even for the peer reviewer, am I picking this up for review or this is not of my interest. So your title and your keywords basically put your manuscript up into visibility, within your community as you publish. Yes, sir, you want to say? For peer review. Oh, yes. Yeah. Because there are peer reviewers who will take months and months. Months and months. That is true. Yeah, especially the very busy journals who want a turnaround time. Publishing is a very highly profitable industry. And it is also a very competitive industry. And that is why the faster you are, the more attractive you become to people who want to publish, this thing. Anyone in the audience or in my panelists also who are familiar with SEO? SEO as a term, SEO. It's not related to article publishing. It's a general term. It's an abbreviation, SEO. Have you heard of it? Search engine optimization. Can you tell us a little more about that, sir? What is it? Yeah, so search engine optimization is that you, and it's an industry by itself, that you put keywords, and these are the most common keywords that will keep your article on top. So when you Google for something, let's say I want information on COVID-19, or like Dr. Akash was saying, I want information on soleus push-ups and diabetes. You will put those keywords. And it is possible that you might get an article which actually does not have either of that. But someone very smart has anyway put those keywords in their publication just to bring it up. Like it happened, we saw it a lot during COVID-19. Everybody was searching for COVID-19, and almost every research, whether it was related to COVID-19 or not, would have that as a keyword. So keywords not only become important in the mesh terms, but now because a lot of journals are totally electronic, there's no print, the search engine algorithms also first look at the keywords, and therefore keywords become one of the important criteria to see that your research comes up first. When? Yes, of course, Dr.
I can just add one sentence. In keywords, mesh headings is something like there are 10 synonyms for one word. Say teachers may be called educators, may be called gurus, or may be called something else other. But they have identified one term, say teacher as mesh heading. So if you put teachers, they will give you all the articles containing educators, gurus, and that is why that keyword becomes important. So if you are writing educator in your article, you may better choose teacher as a keyword so that your article comes up.
That's a brilliant pro tip. That's a brilliant pro tip, that you must choose your keywords which are likely to be put by more people, because that is what will sit on top of the mesh term. That is an excellent tip, and so thank you very much. Any questions on title or to the keywords to any of the panelists before we move on? So
what do you think about it? Whether the question mark could be okay, or it might sort of even.
Yeah, so that's a very interesting one. Any of the panelists would like to take it? You can be heard, Dr.
So, sir, if the question mark is not that you cannot put in the title, you can put if it is in this statement. Right? So, if it is a phrase, mostly these are used in the qualitative studies. You can put. There is nothing like that. You can't use question mark.
Is it a common thing? It's
No,
a
it is
common
not a common thing.
Why is it not a common practice? Because anyway, every research is a question. So why don't we see so many question marks that, Dr. Lakhani made a comment on it?
No, so you can't put your research question as a heading. So you must have done your study for solving the research question, and that part should come in the that should be catchy, and that can be your research question, if it is catchy, you have to modify it. Research question is a technical word. Like that is for your peer reviews or see. That is a medical term. And
Right.
that title is for the all the persons.
Whoever are looking at it. Okay, anyone else have a... No, the question mark, we are still on the question mark. Yeah,
So
which is
can
what
I-
Dr. Saurabh said. It has to be relevant and informative.
Can I give an example?
Yeah, so how does an editor look at as a title comes with a question mark? Is that- No, so let's just finish the question mark question. So how does the editor look at the question mark? The question mark can be there on a title, but if it is there to just to attract that I'm posing, like he said, posing a question, that therefore somebody is incited to look at the answer. If that is the only purpose it serves, it won't they would usually ask you to change the title. But if it has relevance, it is in the whole article is a article or is a publication meant to provoke thought rather than give an answer, then the question mark is not relevant. So would you like to connect?
That becomes difficult because when you try and write down a running title, whatever the gist which we have in the title does not.
So sir brings a good term, running title and a short title. Dr. Saurabh, would you like to say something about it? What will be seen on the manuscript itself? When it gets published, you will only see the running title. But the short title is the title that is there for the back end to, for the reviewers and the editors and even on ePrint to see what it is. So yes, you can have a question mark in your running title as well, but it is to be used with prudence because that is not the norm, and only when a manuscript will incite that kind of thought-provoking or question mark definitely is there, and we see those as running titles. So it's not a no-no. Somebody else had a question that we interrupted. Yes, Akash. Direct, genius. My panelists. Dr. Devan, would you like to answer? His question is that when you have all these direct trial, genius study, IMAP study, look ahead study. So Akash wants pro tips on that. How do you find these genius abbreviations? So that's absolutely. What Dr. Devendra said, I will totally, you shouldn't just find an acronym for the sake of having an acronym. But if you think that your acronym your study is of that depth and width, and it is, let's say, one of the first of its kind, you want people to quote it, it is a great idea to have an acronym. So nothing stops you. Go ahead and experiment, find out catchy stuff. There are no rules around it. No, sir. They are given to get your students to remember it. कि वो direct trial पढ़ा था. No. For multi-centric study, we remember it by many other ways.
Sir, how do you remember Dilwale Dulhania Le Jayenge? You remember it at DDLJ mode.
Great one. Good one. But your acronym should be known, be first known. Yeah. So if you expect your acronym to, if you expect your study to get popular, you can popularize your acronym. But Dr. Singh, it is two ways. One is first because the study had so much merit. And then to remember or to talk about it, that became, and so when, especially when we are doing it for NCs, new chemical entities or new biological entities for the first time, and we know if it becomes a blockbuster, this will be the first study and will get quoted, we usually have acronyms for them because we are expecting that to happen.
In fact, if you, Akash, you would agree that see, all studies of Astra, they did it on rosuvastatin, and that has been all related with say galaxies. So Mercury, galaxy, so all Jupiter. So all studies are being named on that, and that is one of the things. Say, I don't think so that say, some of the time you try and find it out that this is for the sake that they want this name. The study is being named like this. Actually, that name might not be coming out, but then because that they want that their study would be.
Yeah, then you popularize it with that name. There are no rules. You can pick up anything because now you know. There is no rules. There is no rules. And every study does not need to have an acronym, right? So Dr. Kalpita told us about the anatomy of, the article, and she mentioned that your methodology, and we discussed it with Dr. Aarti's session also, that the methodology comes from the protocol, and the results is like she put it very well, that you funnel your information, and your results are where you describe what happened with the method you use. And if you see in results, you'll often see a lot of text, you'll also see a lot of tables, figures and graphs. And as a writer, it's important to know how much is enough. How much tables, how many graphs, how many figures or tables, what would you do, right? And that becomes an important aspect, of any research. And where would you put your tables? Within the text, after the text. And so, Dr. Divendra, that's your question. Would you tell us a little more about table, figures and text? How many and where?
So most of us must have seen that Drishyam. So Drishyam is a movie which all of us must have liked. So table, graphs and charts are like that only. So you have to see that, and you can get the smart reviewers take the charts and they see the tables, what the PI has done, and let's see what is the authenticity of that. So table. Each journal has its own guidelines about the number of tables and charts they can put. So it is depend upon the journal that they allow 1 or 2 tables or charts. How to prepare tables and charts? There should be no repetition. So every time you should not mention the things in the text and the same thing in the table. Try to avoid that. Those has been explained in the text. You may replicate few things, but not all the things that you are listing in the table. The length of the table is many times has been described by the author's guidelines in the journal. And if their tables are important in those situations mainly where you are comparing two things. Where you are comparing. So in a study you are comparing survivors and non-survivors. You are seeing what are the mean age. So if we are comparing with the two groups, the tables become important, and the person can review that what is the difference, what are the actual numbers, what is the standard deviation, what is the p-value. They can make out the things from there. And charts, if you design like say charts are important like male and female. So it is की dichotomous variable है कि इतने male थे इतने female थे. And if the charts like bar diagram is important when the there is a continuous variable. Like we have divided the person, we have divided the participants into the age groups 10 to 20, 20 to 20 to 40, and 40 to 60. So there we can use the bar diagrams. We can do the histogram. We can use the those are the continuous variables. We can use the scatter diagram also. Many of things when we use for statistical analysis like SPSS, they preformed. When you put the result, they form the graph. So we can directly copy and copy the diagrams. So this is all about the diagrams, and these are the wonderful tool for the reviewer basically. They generally see the topic, and they straight away go to the material methods, and they straight away go to the tables and charts if the is present, and then they decide what you should do.
How will you decide what goes in a table, figure or chart and what goes in the text? Like you very rightly
So
said
you have to
that
mention, you
don't
have-
repeat yourself.
Huh.
If you've already put it in text, don't put it in the table. And if you put it in the table, very briefly describe in the table, in the text that table number 1 says this. That's all. You will have to give a reference to the table in your text.
And table and graph should be uniquely in the sense that the legend or the caption that is written in the graph or the table should be self-explanatory. It is not that person has to read the
Text.
text in the result and then come to the table. No. It should be self-explanatory. That the caption should be very precise, and it should be written in a well-formed manner.
So we are publishing research, which means what we have is largely data, which is numbers, right? And when a writer starts to write, they are basically putting these numbers into the text of the results. Now, and very often, like for our personal experiences, that from a center when we get data, we either will get an Excel sheet or we'll get a PowerPoint, which has all of these already done, and then say, ab likh do. So, ab likh do mein there'll be one Excel sheet with thousands, millions of data points, or there will be this PowerPoint which has pie charts and bar graphs and, box charts and everything and tables. How do I as a writer decide which one will go as a table or chart or a figure, and which one will actually I will have to put it in text and write it as a text? What is that yardstick you say कि ये table बनेगा और ये तो सिर्फ text में जाएगा?
आजकल ज़माना बहुत आगे हो गया मैम. So now the PI knows what to do it. So first of all,
PI is not writing.
No, ma'am. Let me finish first. So PI is the one who decide what he actually wants, and what the ethical committee and the research committee of the institute wants. It refined you. They straight away say, we are helping you, and they are really helping us. We the clinicians, because they want your title, your objective should be to the point. You do one thing at a time. Don't कि तुमने आज डायबिटीज़ के सारे पैरामीटर ले लिए तुमने और तुम उसको जार्गन बनाए हुए हो, लेकिन करना क्या चाहते हो ये तुम्हें पता ही नहीं है. यू विल टेक सब कुछ मैं फीड कर लेता हूँ सर, कुछ तो करूँगा 1 साल बाद, क्या करोगे तुमको नहीं पता. तो दिस इज ऑल go into the dustbin. So you should know what data you have to collect for your study, correct it. You have to plan your statistical analysis beforehand. It is not that I have this much data and I have to apply something. No, you have to decide कि मैं इसको इस तरह से निकालूंगा, मैं इसका एनालिसिस इस तरह से करूंगा. They want it in the proposal. They want it. What the statistical analysis you will do it. तो आपको वो करना है. That even yes, very true. At our time, nobody
No,
was.
so we are saying कि आपने protocol में डाल दिया what you are going to say, what is your hypothesis, and I agree. Your hypothesis, your primary hypothesis should answer one specific question. आपने statistic analysis भी protocol में डाल दिया, which also I absolutely agree. It has to be done post hoc analysis. It does not have much value unless it is a complicated study. My question is different. My question is, the results are out. We are talking about what she said. The results are out, and the result is data. You've got data. How many males, how many females, how many died, how many survived, how many did well, how many did not, how many adverse events, blah, blah, blah. Now that data is in numbers, and the investigator has sent you or has received an Excel sheet or has received a PowerPoint what they thought, so many males, so many females. Now you are writing the research paper, and you have to write all of this in the results section and then discuss and conclude. How will you decide from this thousands of data
So it is
points
very easy.
which will become table, which will become graph, which will become a figure, and which will go in text and will not come as either of them?
So mostly these are very easy things because if something is continuous variable, as I said, if it is a continuous variable,
What is a continuous variable?
continuous is something 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8,
Alright.
like our height,
Okay,
our weight,
right.
है ना? Dichotomous is one thing, is a male and female.
Yes
black
or
and-
no?
Black and white.
Right.
So if there are two groups separated and we want to describe it, we make it as pie chart. इतने white है, इतने black है, इतने don't take that. If you want to continuous data, you have to make a scatter diagram. Two continuous data को देखना है कि height और weight कैसे vary कर रहा है. So you have to decide which one on the x-axis, which one on the y-axis, and then you should form a dot. Then it becomes a scatter diagram.
So now you have 20 such diagrams and
So
charts.
हाँ,
You can't put all 20 in your paper, right?
Yes.
Which one will you pick is the
so
question.
it depend upon what is your objective.
Right.
What is your objective?
So
you
how
can't-
will you decide that?
So
No. In the objective also, let's say there are 2-3 things. Is it only the objective that you will display or something else too?
No, it is objective.
We are trying to show the trend. It might be much better that you try and show it in the form of a graph. Or
No. Objective is the question. When he says objective, it is the objective of the study. Yes, please, Dr. Aarti. No, that's how we learn.
Okay, so just a try. Probably if you are asked, two tables would be most important. One is which is actually reflecting how you reached your conclusion from your data. So that is one table that would go. And another one is which is showing all the demographic data which can affect your results. So there are two most important tables. One is the demographic data which may affect your result or may affect your data analysis, and the other one all the data for based on which you have reached your conclusion. These two minimum tables, others as per the requirement of the
Study.
journals you may add.
Yeah, that's a good enough start to pick how you would do it. But generally, again, it is when you are writing your research, who are you writing it for? You're writing it for the reader. And when you are writing a scientific, wanted in a scientific journal, your reader is your peer community, right? A physician a diabetologist is going to read a journal of diabetes. And you know that these are busy people, they must be reading thousands of papers every day, and basically there is a short attention span. And like both Dr. Aarti, Dr. Kalpita and Dr. Saurabh said that your attention is to get them in just a little brief. Get a good title, get a keyword, put your abstract very well, write a great introduction, show that the research really mattered. Your reader is going to look at the title and only look at the abstract. If they go past the title and abstract, they're going to look at the table, figures and charts. And your table, figures and charts should be those that at the minimum tell the story about your results. That tell the story, they should be. So like Sir said, what is the conclusion? Also, what was your study population? So like Dr. Aarti said, demographics. This was my study population. This data may not, this was my, it was largely a male study or a largely a female study or a study in geriatrics only or study in. So those things that tell me the story in visuals should go in your table, figures and graphs. And like Dr. Devendu said, you do not repeat what is in the tables again in the graphs, and your tables should be self-explanatory. We don't have the time, the things he was explaining, and that was very interesting, what goes in the axis and all, but that's another, topic ourselves. I'm sorry I had to cut you off on that. But your table figures, and then if that is also interesting, they will read the whole article, right? So your table figures and graphs are largely tools to tell the story of your research, in a very, very short way. Akash has just reminded me that we need to close very fast, but I would like to, pick, and I'll ask this question, open it to all the panelists, that when do you choose your journal and how do you choose your journal? So we'll go with you first because this question was
So
meant for you.
choosing a journal is important. It will goes with your objective and journal scope. What is the journal scope? Which journal is for what? Who is the reader? And how is the journal? How is the credential of the journal? We have to look at where there is a view of peer review is there or not. It should not be a predatory journals. They are now there are various predatory journals. So we have to see all those things before choosing the journal. And
When would you do it? When will you
after,
choose?
after completing the writing.
Article.
Yes.
All right. Madam, how would you choose a journal and when will you choose a journal?
Again, as I started before, how would you choose depends on why are you writing. If it is mandatory by the regulatory body, you have to choose according to the regulatory body's recommendations that this must be the indexation, this must be the journal, this must be the specialty journal, whatever. If you are not compelled by the regulatory body, then choose who are you writing for. So the journal who is actually addressing that population should be included. Of course, a good journal should be there, but if a good journal, so to say, is taking a lot of time, the time is also very important. You may go with a lower index journal also, because if it takes time, say 2 years, it becomes irrelevant. So do not
Absolutely.
wait for a very good journal to get it published in. You may go with a lower indexing also for saving your time. What was the next question?
When will you choose that journal?
When will you choose? Once you have actually, the answer is when you actually start writing.
All right.
That
So
is the
she's opposite from what Dr. Divendu said. It's after. Dr. Aarti says before.
but I'll definitely add, because we have to face rejections. You always have to edit. So again you have to choose a journal definitely. So that choosing a journal, when do you choose it? It may come at various stages after.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Kalpita.
I go with Dr. Aarti. We usually choose a journal before we start writing the article so that I know what are the guidelines. And quite a many times we also look at our research question. Like that time we decide that, okay, I want to publish it in a tuberculosis journal or a diabetic journal. So something like that. And again, looking at the turnaround time, how much time it is going to take in my journal. And one more issue would be the cost of the journal. So, I mean, if it's a funded research, a huge project, cost is not a matter. But if it's like for academic purposes and, paying 80,000, 1,20,000 in PLOS and PHA is quite a lot. So again, depends on that, which journal we choose. Yeah. Yes.
Researchers. Yes. General. Right.
Close.
Open access is when they pay. Open access would have been if they paid.
Pay.
Yeah. But it was a great research and congratulations to you for that. That was excellent. So that is a point as well. Your time, your charges. Yes, sir.
But then, see, what I feel as an academician, all of us, maybe we are there in a medical college, and many times some of our residents would come out with a very good study. It had happened with us that we had to we had sent a paper on malaria journal, and it said that you have to pay one. It was paper was being selected. He said that you have to pay 2 lakh rupees, something which was being said that the concession has to be given, they are from level to level. They said, okay, what we can do, we can try and reduce 25% of your fee. Then also we cannot publish it. No, my question, and see, the work is ours. We don't want sort of thing, because that it is on open access, that we have to pay and poor student, because or somebody who is been trying to develop a field, because that he wants to publish it in a scopus related journal or PubMed index journal, why should he pay? I don't know.
So very interesting. That's a good debate because recently in the US, amongst the Ivy League institutes, there was a strike amongst the peer reviewers. Peer reviewers also do their job for free, right? And it is hard work because you are the ones who are supposed to say go, no go, and also go, no go, but more than that, give a constructive feedback for the article to change to get it published. So the publishing industry is a profit-making industry. It runs only on those profits. And therefore, these fees have to come from somewhere. Either the author pays or the reader pays. But like sir said, you can ask for waivers. You can ask for 100% waiver. You can say, nahi ho sakta, but my research is very relevant. Sometimes you will get that waiver also. We have had, some success in that. But also it does happen. But the thing then is to start small. Start in journals which either don't charge or have a small fee, because it also matters how much of a cited author are you. If you are a cited author, then you become very important for the journal, and they will invite your articles and ask you, come and write for us, no fee, no fee. Or if you are a cited author and then you say that this is follow-up research or something like that, and I can't, even if there is a fee, the fee will be cut by 90%, or there will just be a token fee. So, but remember, the publishing house does it for profit. They either have it to take it from you or take it from the authors. And you have to decide, do you want your research to be read? Because most, who can pay for these research? It's only academic institutes who have,
For that matter, all my publications are, I first search for a free journal. I do not go. The moment they go over 10,000, I just redact it. Whatever name the journal has, I do not go. And mind you, most of my citations are from those free journals which are not known. They are there. This is so.
Fund for it. That's a great point, and I don't know why we don't have it in medical colleges. My husband, for instance, is a professor at the IIMs, and the IIMs have this, that if a faculty has a publication in, an A+ journal as they call it, the faculty gets a bonus of 15 to 50 lakhs in their paycheck for every such publication. Right, because the institute's rankings go high if you are published in the Lancet, the BMG, Nature group of journals and all that. So they get a bonus, and that is where the money comes for for these research. Yeah, so they do help, and that's a great point, Dr. Singh. So you can ask funding agencies who will fund this research, as long as you give them the acknowledgement for it, because it is a matter of great pride to be published in one of the A+ journals. So in the IIMs, it's a policy that you have to have at least 2 papers a year, the more the better, and A+ journals, and it is part of your variable pay. I think we should also be getting that policy. Yeah, so it's only, and who can buy $45, 45 euros? We can't. I mean, if I also have to do some writing for Akash and I have to look at references, I have to tell him, तुम अपनी pharma से पूछो, मैं नहीं ये pay करने वाले. Who pays? So somebody has to pay. Publishing agency makes money. The author does not. Author gets name and fame. The reviewer gets nothing, And but that is how the system works. It is an unfair system, sir, but that's how it works. All right, so I think we are short of time. We are not short of questions. We did have a few more questions, like one of the very interesting ones, and we have a missing panelist here, was, can ChatGPT write my paper? I'll post that question to the audience because, it is one in a hot one. Can ChatGPT write my papers? And we'll close the session with it. So, you've all heard of ChatGPT now? Anyone has used it? So the paid version only costs $20 a month. बहुत महंगा नहीं है. Can it write your paper? Yes or no? It can write your paper. You tell ChatGPT what to do, it will write your paper. Should it write your paper? Absolutely. It can assist you in writing, but now also know that there is a software that is called Zero GPT, which picks up and can, like there's a plagiarism check software. Now there's a software that goes through that paper, and it's called Zero GPT, at least one of the things that I know, and it will tell whether this paper was written by ChatGPT or was it a human paper. So you can ask it to assist, but you can't ask it to write. And we get papers to review which are written by ChatGPT, and like sir said, it's very obvious कि ये machine ने लिखा है. You can make out because it is किसी paper का वो छपा हुआ. Exactly. Language, formula सब है. It doesn't get that human thing where the thought has come. It will come. Yeah. We do not know the future. It's a futile argument. We do not know the future. We will see what happens. Maybe next year we will be more equipped to talk about it. I know, sir. I know. But अभी परसों ही था कि ChatGPT passed the USMLE. What is it? Absolutely. So we don't know the future. Let's look at it as an assistant right now. Try not to use it. You are still the human. You're still the apex. You're still at the top of the food chain. So you write your papers. Yes, please. So I know, and I think Dr. here and Dr. Swati here were very unhappy with that statement I made. They were like, I think just walked out because of that. No, I'm just joking, sir. Just joking. He has something to say, and I'll come back to it. Yes. That may be the main reason, but even a DOI ID or an ORCID ID, which is, for those who you may not know, is a unique ID. It's like a Aadhaar number, but as an author. It is recommended, it is not mandated, because there are multiple platforms that offer this ID. As of now, it is free. And it is recommended. Mostly it is to avoid impersonation or confusion. Like there might be many Anupama Ramkumars who are publishing, in this thing, and so to know that whose paper this was. The reason is because, the reason that I have understood, and I may be off the track and you will please excuse me, that there is a thrust for quantity. Every professor, is supposed to publish for getting a rating or a promotion. And we know, even in the people we are here, that we know a government medical college and a new private medical college, there is difference in the quality of education or the depth of, but the criteria are the same, right? So everybody wants to publish, and they'll publish anything. Anything. We will get, here are my 30 eco case reports. Can you please make 2 papers out of it? They assume I know eco, and all of that. And so you get numbers, and they are largely a bad idea. Or I will pick up a hypothesis that has already been studied to death. But I'll pick that same question, but I'll say in Indian patients. It goes top of the down the food chain, right? And so it won't get cited unless, let's say, the work that has been done, let's say in Caucasians, the first study, or in Korea or wherever, or China, is in 100 people, and you've said in 10,000 Indian patients, then that study becomes relevant. But if you say that data is there for 30 studies and you want to put one Indian studies, it won't get cited. So largely because it's quantity over quality. It's not that it doesn't get cited, but for the ratio of the publications, we are number 3 in the world in number of publications and really way down on citations, because the amount, the number of really good this thing, and a lot of it is we may have done great work, but we don't have money to publish. And so a lot of good work does not get published. We do a lot of good work, but we don't know how to publish, right? We don't have a protocol. We've not done our statistical analysis. It doesn't get published. I see papers where they're saying, you do the stats. You finish the research. How do I do the stats? You put the p-values, put the confidence intervals. I don't know where those thoughts come from. So if it's not managed well, it won't get published. So what he says is what one of our mentors in the industry says, Dr. Mashalkar. He's written a lot. He's been on the advisory panel for the Government of India. He says, so my question, the first question to the panelists was, when do you start writing your research? He would tell us, and that's how we have learned, you start writing your research the day you write your protocol. You start writing your research that day. Your material and methods should come there, because that will tell you what is not going to be, what is going to be difficult. What are the questions you will not have answers to. So choose your journal the day you are deciding your research question. Where do I want it published? Unless it is like Dr. Aarti said, it is for a regulatory reason. You start your writing or you're thinking of the journal, thinking of the research paper, the day your protocol is final. It's final, your paper should start, and you will know what is going to be difficult. When you sit with that data, it is so confusing to write a paper, because the data is telling you 1,000 stories. There was a meta-analysis done by BMJ that said that most of the conclusion is, for most new research, is interesting data but not conclusive. And the answer, they said, why is that? And the why was because we've not framed the research question right. And if you don't have all of that figured out first, you will not know what to publish. So with these thoughts, there is a lot, of course, we could discuss. I would like to thank my panelists. Thank you for going with the flow and the extempore thing. Yes, please. Sure, please. Their own person.
Actually, I would add one thing. If it's the topic is relevant, it's a intelligently, reasonably chosen topic, reasonably well written script, you will get citations.
We'll
That is
close
what
the session
I
after a
feel.
remark from Dr. Shishandupal.
Another thing, now our medical college are starting to have research units. In Europe, now most of the medical colleges, they have a research unit. Each department, medicine department has a research unit. Surgery, some of my friends that come from Europe to India, and they are very much attached to research. And when they came, they were stunned. They say that you all do research on your own. You are working much harder than us. We have a full research team. In fact, the college he was in, he said we had 26 members in our research team. Nowadays in Bengal, we have the good research team only in SSKM, that's endocrinology department. But in Europe or in USA, The same Massachusetts or Harvard, they have the, for each department they have a research team. That we have to improvise in days to come. Thank you.
So we'll conclude this session by saying that next session from Omkar should be how to create a research team and how to create a medical writing team. I will request all the so I will request all the panelists and the faculties to collect the momentum from the momentum zone, and all of those who are interested in singing should proceed for gala dinner. Singing, it is all by physicians only. So second floor Mahal, we have to create a program basically